The protein bar I grabbed off the counter was 3 weeks past its date. I ate it anyway, standing at the kitchen sink, watching the sun crack over the flat Permian Basin horizon while my laptop loaded the fourth Teams call of the morning. It wasn't even 6:20 a.m. The smell of burnt coffee hung in the air. I'd forgotten to turn the pot off the night before. Again. I'd been up since 3:45, chasing a pipeline pressure anomaly across 2 upstream segments that, if I hadn't flagged it, would have triggered a federal compliance event before the week was out. Not a maybe, a certainty. That's what my mornings looked like. That's what they had looked like for 6 years. My name is Renee Caldwell. I'm 46 years old. I live just outside Midland, Texas, in a house that still smells like the last owner's dogs, no matter how many times I've cleaned it. I've been the field operations backbone of one of the largest midstream energy contracts in the Permian Basin for 6 straight years. Every flare event, every regulator audit, every 2 a.m. compressor failure. I caught it, owned it, fixed it. Back when the company's founder, Ray Duchamp, was still running day-to-day operations, he used to say I was the only reason Vantage Energy hadn't walked on them twice already. Said it in rooms where it mattered, said it on record. That was before everything changed. Now all anyone cared about was who could talk the loudest in a 30-minute strategy session. I watched new hires pitch digital transformation roadmaps while I handled actual emergencies from billion-dollar clients. You miss one report deadline, you're a liability. You prevent a pipeline rupture at midnight, they've forgotten about it by the morning stand-up. I didn't complain. That's not who I am. I documented everything, every incident, every near miss, every time I saved something they didn't even know needed saving. Half the people presenting in those boardroom slideshows couldn't tell you where the pressure monitoring logs were stored, couldn't point to a compression station on a map, but they knew how to format a deck. I managed 3 basin regions and 2 service verticals, under budget, every quarter. Not once did my name appear in a company newsletter. Not once did I get a shout-out in Slack. There was one board call maybe 2 years back where Ray told the investors I was personally responsible for keeping Vantage from walking during the renegotiation. That was the last time I heard my own name spoken out loud in a meeting I wasn't leading. Then they started moving me sideways, quietly, the way they always do it to women who know too much and don't smile doing it. They pulled me from client-facing channels, shifted key meetings off my calendar, published reports I'd written under someone else's name. I kept every original file, time-stamped, backed up in 3 places. I wasn't collecting receipts for therapy. I was collecting leverage. One night, after a particularly long week, I opened a folder I hadn't touched in almost 3 years. The Master Service Agreement, the original one, signed in 2021 during the worst stretch of the pandemic when Vantage was 1 bad quarter away from pulling out entirely. I found my clause in under a minute. Then, I made coffee. Real coffee this time. Slow. 2 days later, he showed up. Blake Merritt, VP of Field Operations, mid-30s, brand new blazer with no field dust on it anywhere. He walked into the Midland office like he'd already won something. I knew the type before he opened his mouth. Ray had a hunting buddy. The hunting buddy had a nephew. And now we had a man who'd spent his entire career in conference rooms telling oil and gas stories he'd read in quarterly reports. First all-hands meeting, he nodded at me across the table and asked if I could take notes. I didn't blink. I just looked at him and said, "Sure, I'll start with your first compliance failure. Should have something to write by end of week." He laughed like I was joking. I wasn't. By the end of week 1, I'd been quietly removed from every standing client sync. No email, no explanation, just gone from the calendar like a ghost. I messaged my director. He said Blake was streamlining reporting lines, nothing to worry about. Then the new material started rolling out. Glossy templates, buzzword dashboards that looked stunning on a laptop screen and buried every meaningful field metric 3 clicks deep. I recognized the data underneath. It was my data. My models, my incident mapping, my escalation logic.
My name wasn't anywhere on it. I forwarded myself every version, every timestamp, created a folder. I named it simply The Record. Week 2, Blake posted in the company-wide Slack channel, said some of the company's legacy systems and processes were creating drag and that they were cleaning house. No names. Didn't need to. Half the org lit up with fire emojis and clapping hands. People love a cleanup announcement when they don't realize they're standing in the building being cleaned. I didn't reply. I just screenshotted it and added it to the folder. People fell for him fast. He had that quality, big energy, fast talk, the kind of corporate fluency that sounds like confidence until you've been in the field long enough to know better. The execs called him exactly what the culture needed, said he brought fresh perspective. Meanwhile, we missed our emergency response drill window for the first time in 11 quarters because Blake rescheduled it over my direct objection to fit a vendor demo. I flagged it in the ops channel. He said we'd circle back. We never did. I started keeping a separate document. Every overridden safety flag, every dismissed field warning, every time I said this won't hold and he said we'll iterate. One night around 11:30 p.m., I caught a pressure variance alert that had been manually suppressed in the monitoring system. Someone had buried a slow leak under a scheduled calibration tag. If it had run through the night, we would have been in front of the Railroad Commission by morning. I handled it, documented it, moved it into the folder. He thought I'd gone quiet because I was fading out. I let him think that. There is a particular kind of power in being underestimated, especially when you're the only one in the room who knows exactly how the whole thing is held together. 3 weeks in, I passed him in the hallway outside the break room. He gave me a big smile, friendly, like we were colleagues who respected each other. Renee, he said, I want you to know I appreciate everything you've built here. We're going to try to preserve the best of it as we evolve. I smiled right back, steady, calm. Just make sure you read all the original field documentation before you start pulling wires. Some of those systems don't fail loudly. They fail completely. He laughed again, that same easy laugh. Back at my desk, I checked the admin access logs. Blake had already overridden permissions on 4 client-side data folders, including mine. I flagged the log, dropped it into the folder, labeled it Access Revision Week 3. He was touching things he didn't understand. I wasn't going to stop him. Not yet. By week 5, my login to the Vantage client portal was gone. No warning, no email. I tried to pull field reports for a Monday morning prep session and got a red screen. Permission denied. I tried the admin bypass. Locked out there too. I sent Blake a message. Access dropped. Need reinstatement before the morning client call. He replied 12 minutes later. No need. We're centralizing access. Regional team will handle client touchpoints going forward. I called him. Only time I ever called him directly. Quick question, I said, keeping my voice level. Did we loop in legal before pulling access on a named lead? He sounded like he was eating lunch. Legal works for us, Renee. Client will sign off. It's a formality. I want to make sure you're aware that this contract has very specific language around continuity of named personnel. Pulling access without transition documentation could trigger a walk provision. Silence for a beat. You're overthinking it, he said. This is about modernizing the relationship. These clients want efficiency, not a single point of contact. Not this client, I said, and not with that clause still active. He didn't ask which clause. He just said, I think we've got it covered. You're not the only professional in this building. I said nothing, just hung up. Opened the contract, found clause 7.2a, highlighted it. Named operational lead, voluntary resignation, full client exit, no penalty. I'd helped write it back in 2021 during the worst of the COVID slowdowns when Vantage was threatening to walk every other month. Marcus Webb, their head of risk at the time, had called me on a Thursday evening and said, "We need a name on this agreement, not a company name, A human being, someone who answers the phone when something blows up and owns it all the way to the end. I didn't hesitate. Use my name. Long pause. You sure about that, Renee? If it breaks, I told him, I'll fix it. We spent 2 weeks rewriting that MSA together. Late calls, early edits, red line after red line. Clause 7.2a was born from that stretch. Our legal team barely read it. His legal team called it a continuity safeguard. I made sure it survived every contract renewal since. My name was in it, in ink, binding. I saved the PDF, closed the laptop, sat with it. The quarterly all hands was supposed to be routine. Full company, board members on, senior leadership presenting. My section was midway through. 6 months of field performance data showing that despite everything happening internally, our SLA metrics hadn't slipped once, not a single one. I shared my screen, pulled up the incident resolution curve. 90 days, clean, steady. You'll notice the trend here. Blake cut in, smooth, rehearsed. Thanks, Renee. Actually, this is a good moment to share a structural update. He was already smiling at his camera. As of this week, Renee will be transitioning out of direct field account involvement. We've brought in a regional coordination team to manage client operations going forward. I stopped mid-sentence. My cursor sat still on the graph. And then he muted my microphone. In front of 140 people, the board, general counsel, my own team. My camera stayed on. I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my hand. I didn't type a single word in the chat. I just closed my laptop, sat in my kitchen, same chair, same half-dead cactus on the windowsill. Let the silence land. The general counsel, a sharp woman named Diana Holt, didn't say a word during the meeting, but right before logging off, I watched her reach for a notepad and write something down. That was enough. That afternoon, I read the contract again, cover to cover. Clause 7.2a hadn't moved. If the named operational lead resigns voluntarily, the client may terminate the full agreement immediately and without financial penalty. Named operational lead. Me. No ambiguity, no override, no spin. I didn't tell anyone what I was planning. Not my team, not Marcus Advantage, not a soul. I'd held this company's operations together for 6 years, eaten every impossible problem they handed me without complaint. I'd been muted like a background noise on a call about my own work, like I was legacy clutter. So I uploaded the full contract to the shared legal drive, time-stamped, accessible to anyone with credentials. Then I closed the browser and took the rest of the day off. The year was 2021. Midland was reeling. The price crash had gutted half the basin. Companies were renegotiating everything or walking away entirely. Marcus Webb called me at 6:45 on a Tuesday morning. He didn't bother with a greeting. We need a name, not a company name, a human being, someone who answers the phone when something blows up and owns it all the way to the end. I didn't hesitate. Use my name. Long pause. You sure about that, Renee? If it breaks, I told him, I'll fix it. We spent 9 days rebuilding that agreement from scratch. Clause 7.2a was the result. Straightforward language, no loopholes. My name, my exit, their option to walk. Their legal team loved it. Our legal team skimmed it. I made sure it was in every signed version since. I knew one day it would matter. I just didn't know I'd be the one activating it. A few hours after the all hands, HR pinged me. Quick sync to Elian on transition planning. No subject. Calendar invite only. I walked in with nothing but a pen. 3 people. HR director, someone from people operations, and Blake sitting back like he'd already won. The HR lead smiled warmly. We just want to make sure you feel supported through this next chapter and that everyone's on the same page. I cut straight through it. Am I being terminated? She blinked, glanced at Blake. He opened his mouth, closed it. No, she said. There's no termination in progress. I nodded. Okay. Stood up, left. Didn't take the water bottle. Back at my desk, I sent one message to my team. All of them. 6 words. Don't forward anything to personal email. The group chat exploded within the hour. Are you leaving? Is something happening? Is this about Blake? I didn't reply. I just watched. By the next morning, legal had found the file. I watched the access log refresh. Diana Holt opened it 3 times in under an hour. By noon, the count was in double digits. A Slack thread about legal review protocols appeared and was deleted 20 minutes later. Someone in procurement quietly asked if anyone had the original MSA on file. No one answered. I sipped my coffee. Blake posted another system update that afternoon, full of phrases like frictionless realignment and next-gen delivery model. Same energy as always, but the tone had shifted slightly. Less teeth, more hedge. He still hadn't read the clause, but other people had, and they were starting to understand what it meant. The night before the next all-hands, I stayed late, not to work, to clean. 6 years of field notes, post-its, printed incident maps, emergency contacts I had memorized anyway. I threw most of it out. The office was quiet, except for the hum of the HVAC and a faint compressor sound drifting in from outside. The Permian Basin never really goes silent. I wasn't nervous. I was finished being patient. I wiped my desk, unplugged my headset, slid my badge into a small envelope. On the front, in black marker, one line. Effective 9:01 a.m. Then I drove home. Morning. I brewed coffee slow. Same mug, same ritual. The invite appeared at 8:59. Quarterly operations alignment. All staff, board included. Hosted by Blake Merritt. Attendance mandatory. 140 names on the list. I joined at 8:59. Camera off, mic muted. My background was already set. Black screen, white text, centered. Effective 9:01 a.m. Blake was in full presentation mode, talking about velocity and transformation and a new operational era. He loved that word era, like he'd invented the basin. I watched the clock. At exactly 9:01, I turned my camera on. Nobody noticed at first, just another face in the grid. Then people started reading the background. The silence spread like a pressure drop.
I held up 2 items, steady as drilling rig on solid ground. My badge in my left hand, my resignation letter in my right. Signed, dated, timestamp visible. My full name, my signature, clear as West Texas daylight. I didn't speak, I didn't smile, I didn't move. Blake kept talking for another 4 seconds. Then he looked at his screen. His grin cracked at the edges. Renee, we can definitely take this offline. Nothing from me. This isn't really the right forum for... Still nothing. The chat erupted. Someone typed, "Is this official?" Someone else, "Wait, is she resigning live?" The board squares were frozen. Diana Holt leaned close to her screen, reading. She recognized the clause. I could see it in her eyes. Blake tried to recover. "Everyone, let's stay on agenda." His voice was thinner now, cracked at the edges. I lowered my hands, set the badge and the letter side by side on the desk. Then I clicked End Meeting for me. Screen went black. I stood up, put on my jacket, picked up my keys, walked out of the building without looking back. The November air hit my face like cold water. Clear, dry, still. The parking lot was half empty. I sat in my truck for a moment, watching the morning light move across the oil field rigs on the horizon. 9:03 a.m. Somewhere inside, the panic was already spreading. I started the engine. Claws activated. By 7:18 the next morning, it came. Formal PDF. Signed. Delivered from Vantage Energy's General Counsel. Subject line, exercise of Clause 7.2a. 6 sentences. Clean, clinical, immediate. The contract, worth $18 million annually, was gone. No discussion, no appeal, no wiggle room. The board crisis call started 40 minutes later. I wasn't on it, but the leaks came in fast. One director asked plainly, when were we made aware of this clause? Legal responded, it's been in every signed version since 2021. Then the audit logs surfaced. Blake had bypassed at least 4 flagged compliance warnings over the previous 6 weeks. Diana had documented a 5th herself. Email subject line, continuity provisions, immediate legal review required. Dated 3 weeks prior. Everyone had missed it, or chosen not to see it. Blake tried to spin it like always. In disruption, there's opportunity, he said in an exec thread. We rebuild stronger. This creates space to realign. Nobody bought it. The board wasn't looking for a TED Talk. They wanted to know who was responsible. By noon, an investor on the line, a woman from a Houston-based energy fund who didn't waste words, asked one question. Who owns the Vantage relationship right now? Blake didn't answer. 10 full seconds of silence on a call with 14 people. Diana finally spoke. No one. Renee resigned. That was it. The curtain ripped wide open. By end of day, the resignation screenshot was circulating internal channels. Me, camera on, badge in one hand, letter in the other. Black background, white text. Someone pulled a clip from the recording. One comment. She didn't storm out, she detonated. By the next morning, the story had jumped outside the company. A contracts attorney in Austin posted a thread breaking down Clause 7.2a line by line. It hit 6,000 likes in 4 hours. Operations people, legal professionals, women in energy, they all knew exactly what they were looking at. The founder's email leaked by noon. Not internal, not diplomatic. Subject line, on accountability. First line, you silenced the named person. You handed her the exit on a silver platter. By Friday, Blake's name was gone. Not in a press release, not in an announcement, just gone. Titles stripped from Slack, calendar wiped, his threads were deleted mid-sentence. An intern asked where he went. Someone responded with a single period. Legal sent a formal notice to all active enterprise clients the same day. We have conducted a full review of continuity provisions across all active agreements. If you have questions regarding named personnel, please contact your engagement lead. Everyone understood the subtext. We let the wrong person walk, and we are checking every door we forgot to lock. The M&A deal they'd been building toward for 18 months collapsed. One buyer withdrew. The other demanded a 60-day delay in a full clause audit. Word inside was they were asking a simple question. How many other people were named in how many other contracts? The answer, it turned out, was more than anyone had thought. Budget freeze. Recruiting halted. 8 senior technical leads resigned over the next 3 weeks. No speeches, no farewell posts, just letters filed and boxes carried out. I was already somewhere else by then. A mid-sized independent operator out of Odessa had reached out 48 hours after the Zoom. They'd seen the clip. Their CEO, a woman who'd spent 20 years on actual rigs before she ran one, called me herself. No intermediary, no recruiter. We talked for 30 minutes. She asked smart questions. She didn't use the word synergy once. She opened by saying, I want to hear about how you think, not just what you've done. I signed the contract 4 days later. 2 weeks after that, a package arrived at my door. Small, no return address. Inside, wildflowers, Indian paintbrush, bluebonnets, a single sunflower wrapped in brown paper and twine. Texas flowers. Someone had cut them by hand. The note inside read, "If you ever want to come back, we'll do it differently, on your terms. We understand that now." No signature, no logo. I read it once, then again. Then I set it on the counter next to the printed copy of Clause 7.2a, and I let myself feel it. All of it. The 6 years, the 3 a.m. calls, the erased credits, the silenced mic, the morning I walked out. I let myself feel it, and then I let it go. I didn't call, didn't write back. The note slid into a folder, behind the clause, and the folder went into a drawer. Their terms. Too late, but the message received. I never gave a speech, never posted a goodbye on LinkedIn, didn't write a bitter farewell or drop a passive-aggressive Slack message on my way out the door. I didn't need to. My exit wasn't loud. It was exact. They called it a crater, what I left behind. $18 million in annual revenue gone with a 1-page letter and a 30-second camera frame. But the crater wasn't the resignation. The crater was what came after. The silence where a recovery plan should have been. The blank space where institutional knowledge used to live. They'd spent years painting over the engine, never once looked under the hood. The new team is different. 12 people, real work. My manager sends voice notes instead of slide decks. The CEO remembers my name without looking at a roster. On my second day, I logged into the monitoring dashboard and found one message waiting. "Thanks for catching the anomaly last night. Nobody else would have seen it." No signature, no formatting. Just the truth, sent directly. I leaned back in my chair, let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for 6 years. It wasn't about being thanked. It never was. But it didn't hurt. I cracked my knuckles, pulled up the diagnostics, and got to work.